good hunter, fear the blood.
A corpse should be left well alone.
We are born of the blood, made men by the blood, undone by the blood.
And so, the hunt begins again.
Just go out and kill a few beasts. It's just what hunters do.
Bloodborne was my very first Souls game, and it still holds a very special place in my heart. So to celebrate 10 years since its release, here's my idiot's guide to Yarnham. On this run, I'll show you a super powerful build, the earliest possible weapon upgrades, give you some tips and tricks for dealing with bosses, and of course, go on about parrying for far too long. The first thing we have to do is kill the beast in this room. He's injured, so he dies in a single backstab. Backstabs in Bloodborne work differently to Souls, and are initiated by hitting an enemy from behind with a chargey. Pick up the bullets, blood vials and molotovs on the way to the first lantern. Now into the hunter's dream to grab your weapon. If you've ever heard anyone say that Souls games don't have difficulty settings, well, Bloodborne does. There's easy mode, standard mode and hard mode right here. We're choosing easy mode today. Grab the saw cleaver, the hunter's pistol and head into central Yarnham. Now the start of a Bloodborne run is far more important than the start of Elden Ring or DS3 runs, as our two most important resources, bullets and heals, are finite, and the thing you really want to avoid is choking on either of the two tutorial bosses, then having to farm for heals and bullets. To avoid this, if you're relatively new to the game, it's worth spending an extra bit of time in central Yarnham. What you're watching here is what I'd call a safety route. It's somewhere in between the two extremes of completely clearing out the area and running straight to Father Gascoigne. So I've run through the first part of Yarnham and unlocked the shortcut. By the time the shortcut is open here, you can already upgrade your weapon to +1, but we're not doing that just yet. Head back through the shortcut, past the dog area, over the bridge, and into this building, where you can break these barrels to reveal the rafter area. First, go say hi to Eileen.
A hunter must hunt.
Now for our weapon. The hanging item furthest away from Eileen is what we're here for. Grab this cold blood dew, cut it down, don't worry, it's literally impossible for you to fall off here, then drop into the lower area to grab it. Up the ladder, run past these boxes and grab the 2 oil urns by these crows. Drop down onto this rafter for a blood shard. Then into the lower section and take a right just after the stairs for another. Further up, you'll find a pig, which is worth killing for more blood vials. Run around him and give him his yearly medical. Double back on yourself, up the ladder to unlock the second shortcut for later. Then head back to the dream. Now, a rule you should follow, unless you really know what you're doing in Bloodborne, is do not touch your levels unless your heals and your bullets are full. It's way more important early on to have heals and bullets, so spend your cash on heals, then pop a cold blood to upgrade your saw spear to +1. Now for the final bit of Central Yarnham setup. It's time to go get our hat. Through the first building past the shortcut and up onto the bridge. Run past the beasts and take a right. There's a hidden blood shard here you can get by breaking these boxes. If the beasts are following you, do a quick quit out here. Break the boxes to your right and down into the sewer. Now the enemies here are the most dangerous we've come across so far, but they are easy to parry. Bloodborne parries are slightly different to Souls parries, in that as a general rule you want to input slightly earlier than you would in Souls. Think of them as interrupting the attack animation rather than deflecting the strike. When they're dead, drop down onto this rafter for a cold blood, then plunging attack the rat. Kill the final beast for our outfit. At this point we are one shard short of a +2, and most of the time you will have got this from a random drop. However, if you're making a YouTube video, Miyazaki will say fuck you and you'll have to go and grab this one on the bridge past the beasts. Back to the dream to level up to +2 and buy more heals. Now for the first boss. Cleric Beast is the perfect tutorial boss for any of the large monsters you'll encounter later on. Bloodborne, in place of a posture system for bosses, instead has a limb break system, where any limb that sustains a certain amount of damage will break and give you a short punish window. Although he's not parryable, if you shoot Cleric Beast in the head, he'll stagger and give you a riposte opportunity. Back to the dream for more heals, and don't you dare touch those levels yet. Now for the second boss. Father Gascoigne is the perfect tutorial boss for all of the humanoid fights, and the boss that really teaches you how to play this game. A really nice strat for a parry approach is chucking an oil pot at him after a riposte, then following the next one with a Molotov for big damage. In phase 3 he's incredibly weak to fire, so this strat is amazing for that. Now into Cathedral Ward. You'll find these guys all over the game, and they have a very forgiving parry window. Grab the extra heals and the second part of our fashion. Head up the stairs to grab the shards next to the giant. This guy is pretty easy if you pretend it's Dark Souls 2 and run round him. He'll either drop weapon upgrades or heals, so it's worth it for a slow playthrough. Now down the stairs and to the right. There's 3 shards by this crow and another 8 by the giant at the end if you kill the little scurrying beasts. We don't need to kill the little fella on this run, but if you've done a faster route in central Yarnham, it's worth throwing a molly at this guy. Back to the dream for a +3 sword spear. Time to make our way to Old Yarnham. Up past the dogs, through the building to chat to Alfred for some fire paper. Between here and the next lantern, you'll find a nice gem and some beast cocktails in the room with the lantern. For faster setup routes in Bloodborne, there's usually a whole shopping list of things we need to grab in Old Yarnham. But as we're set up for the next boss already, for us there's only one. This is an incredible area to explore if you're not familiar with it, so take your time. When you get to this section, crossing the bridge, take a left and down to the end to grab beast blood pellets. Then up the stairs of a nearby building, you'll find some more fire paper and a shortcut you can unlock on the floor below. The boss of the area is Blood-Starved Beast. This boss inflicts slow poison, so the best equipment is actually the starting gear with the top hat. Equip the pungent cocktails, fire paper and beast blood pellets. Now there is a speedrun script you can do for this fight. You buff with fire paper at the third pillar, chuck a pungent cocktail into the wall, then use a beast blood pellet right before you start attacking, and hit beast with transforming attacks to build up your beast meter. This works great with a +0, so we could absolutely delete him with a +3. Feel free to look up that script, but I'm going to back off, let the buffs run out and show you how to do this fight if something goes wrong. Blood-Starved Beast actually has a really easy moveset. You can just dodge or strafe right for every single attack and you will never be hit. What does get you though is the passive poison he has in phase 3, which will proc while you're near him. This is why it's a good idea to always have some antidotes equipped. There's lots of these in Old Yarnham, so you should have enough if you've explored. Now I want to show you a little exploit that, when used sensibly, can make Bloodborne a little more accessible if you're getting used to it. Go over to the Chalice Dungeon headstones and type in the infamous code. There's a really common misconception that you need to go into the Chalice Dungeons and beat some bosses to unlock this. You don't. The only requirements are being online and having killed BSB. This place is a save-edited Chalice Dungeon, where something is dying the second you walk in. So just by running over to this corner, you can net yourself 90k blood echoes in 15 seconds. And while you can use this to completely ruin the game for yourself, what I would recommend is if you're starting out, head into this dungeon, then go back to the dream and buy enough bullets and heals for the rest of the run. For me, there's nothing more tedious than being stuck on a boss, then having to go farm for heals and bullets. So if you're new or doing a challenge run, you can use this dungeon for replenishing heals. Now back to Cathedral Ward, where another door is open in the chapel. Head up the lift towards the upper cathedral, and clockwise round the building for a couple of twin blood shards from the scurrying beast. And nearby, with a little platforming, you'll find the workshop. There's 3 items here: a story item, an arcane item that we won't use on this run, and the one we're here for, the doll's outfit. Head back to the dream to sell this for 35k. This is similar to the amount of echoes you'll get from late game bosses, so it's a great money booster early game and allows us to level up some health. Back to the workshop and continue exploring until you open up this shortcut up to the cathedral. So let's talk about the Saw Cleaver and the Saw Spear. Both of these are considered the best weapons in the game for no-hit runs and speedruns, because of how they interact with beast blood pellets. The L1 transforming attacks build beast meter quicker than most other weapons. And as your beast meter fills, your damage goes up by a lot. Combining this with fire paper and the limb break system means you can do this to bosses. With Vicar Amelia dead, we can head back to the dream and grab the item required for access to the DLC. The entrance to the DLC is just outside the Cathedral Ward Chapel, so have a look around for it. Like in Elden Ring, an early trip to the DLC is great for grabbing upgrade materials before you're meant to. Grab the twin shards on the way up the mound, then more past the first hunter on top of the gate. Head into the cathedral to grab the eye for later. Then turn left as you exit to get to the gun section. When you're clear of this, run down here for this shard. A little tip for running through here is grab this shard even if you don't need it, as it will give these nerds time to get out of the way. Over or under the bridge to unlock the shortcut, and back to the dream to heal if needed. Now this next section is a little sketchy. You have to run past a bunch of dogs, and then go up a ladder near an old hunter and some crows. As long as you make it to the ladder at full health, you'll be fine. Run past Cannon Dude and grab the lantern in the church. From here, down the steps to a scurrying beast, who, because I was recording this run, decided to immediately yeet himself out of bounds and make me spend 5 minutes carefully hitting his corpse back into range so I could grab the item that the run depended on. The final part of our DLC setup route is heading into one of the most dangerous parts of the game. From the cathedral shortcut, jump off the bridge to the left and run past the bloodsuckers. There's a scurrying beast just before you get into the cave. Before I went in here, in a very rare move of professionalism not often seen on this channel, I went back to Yarnham for a torch so you can actually see what's going on. Run into the cave, keeping to the right to stay away from the guy with the minigun. Then through the gap in the wall to grab these two items, ignoring the one on the right. Then get completely fucking ganked because no matter how many times you've run through this room without incident, when you're filming something, Miyazaki knows. The final two items are on the way out of the cave. Next on the agenda is to unlock 2 later game areas for early upgrades. The first step here is to head back up towards Vicar Amelia's arena, but take a left before the cathedral. This path will lead you to Hemwick Charnel Lane. There's only 2 pickups we need here. Some twin shards in the very first area you get to, then a scurrying beast in a dark attic later on. Apart from that, just have fun exploring. The difficulty of both this area and its boss are actually related to your level of insight, the second one on the top right. Having the amount we do here means that more powerful enemies will spawn all around. Feel free to dump all of it into some equipment in the Dream shop if you want an easier ride, but it's more useful for buying items later on. When you approach the boss, run into this room and quit out. When you load back in, wait for these guys to go, then break the barrels to scare a little scurrying beast out of the ceiling for more twins. The Witch of Hemwick is a puzzle fight that won't cause you too much trouble. even with the extra enemies because of our insight. You can stunlock her by hitting her in the back with a charge-E repeatedly. The really cheesy method for doing this would be to quit out after walking in, then spend all of your insight. Then it would just be her. This is pretty unnecessary on this run though. In the room after the boss, you'll find the Rune Workshop tool. Now into the Forbidden Woods, which you can reach by exploring Cathedral Ward. Make sure you've interacted with the item in Vicar Amelia's room if you get stuck here. As soon as you're out of the building, you can drop down from a ledge for some more upgrade items. The Forbidden Woods is a maze, and I'll leave it to you to explore fully. When you get to this little village area, which may become memorable, there's a hidden hut containing 6 beast blood pellets that are worth grabbing. Another smaller hut nearby contains more. But what we're here for is in this area. Speak to this NPC to get the tonsil stone. Then afterwards turn left by the dog cages to head down into the poison caves. There's some really good gems in this cave, so grab everything you can before heading up the ladder. I'm not going to spoil the next area for any newcomers, but the item we're looking for is the Canehurst Summons. You'll know you're in the right place when you find it. Now back to the Witch's Arena. Canehurst Castle is one of Bloodborne's secret areas. You can look it up if you like, but you have everything you need to figure out how to get there. At the start of the area, run down the hill. This is most likely going to be a one-way trip, but it's worth it for a very good early gem. Now into the castle, up the stairs and right for the first chunk. The second chunk is on top of a smaller tower with a gargoyle on it. You'll find a shortcut lift just further on. Run through this very busy room, making sure to catch a dart in the head every single fucking time. Up the stairs, then jump off this staircase. Then remember that Bloodborne has the stupid jump controls, then jump off it to the left to skip a good part of the level. If you're not in a hurry, the main intended path allows you to pick up a Kin Coldblood, which is nice free money for later. Up the ladder and kill the Scurrying Beast for 2 more chunks. And the final chunk is just past the staircase we jumped off on the higher level. Now back to Cathedral Ward for another hidden area. The way to it is again heading up towards the Grand Cathedral, but this time turning right before the stairs. This leads to a pretty dangerous area, which then leads to this large chamber. The entrance is here. You'll figure it out. The Nightmare Frontier is a great area to explore on your first playthrough, with many hidden secrets. The items that we need are right at the very end of it, so I'll see you there. When you've unlocked the shortcut, head back down to this point. Jump off the ledge and get a plungy off on the giant Scurrying Beast. These things are actually pretty dangerous to fight head on, but get the first hit in and they're fine. And now for the most sketchy part of an early +9 run. Run through the swamp, back through the last section of the area where you'll see this giant Scurrying Beast just under the Winter Lantern, which I'm sure you'll remember. Now back to the Hunter's Dream to, for the first time, use the Blood Gem tool. Gems in Bloodborne take the place of talismans or rings, and for this run we're focused on high physical damage. Now, this next part is optional, but if you really want to bully Bloodborne to the extreme, head back to the Nightmare Frontier and into the boss of the area. There's two types of Bloodborne player. Those who think that being aggressive with Amygdala is the most satisfying way of doing the fight, and those who fought the Defiled one. Amygdala is an easy boss as long as you follow certain rules in Phase 1. Keep your distance, wait for her to do something, then go straight in to punish. Head is better, but arms are fine. Get in, then get out. Run in a straight line to the left or right for either of the laser attacks, and they'll never hit you. The second you see her transition to Phase 2, run to the tail. You're safe by the end of the tail, and she'll only either stomp or jump. When she jumps, run to the side, and that's where the head will land. Repeat this for a safe Phase 2. Now, I'm not going to use farmable gems on this run, and I'm not going to get into it too much, because the gem system in Bloodborne is more akin to something you'd see in Diablo or PoE than a FromSoft game, encouraging farming for the best drops. The very best gems, like these I have on my main character, are only found in the deepest Chalice dungeons, and can give you over 30% damage per slot. I'm going to stick to guaranteed main game drops for this video, but if you want to do some gem farming, this is the earliest spot for decent ones. Killing this Winter Lantern will give you standard gems, but also blood droplets that will fit our waning slot in the Sword Spear. I killed her 5 times to demonstrate and got an 11% thrust gem and an 11% blood droplet. Again, I won't use these. If you're not farming, you can get a pretty weak waning gem from crushing the brooch in Father Gascoigne's arena. We're going to get a much better one later in the game. Now out of the realms of nerdery and back to normality, go to Cathedral Ward and get naked. Unequip every single piece of weaponry and armour you have, then head outside to meet this guy carrying his sack. You need to kill him fist only to access the next area. Run through the Hypergean jail until you get to the boss, Dark Beast Parl. And with Beast Blood Pellets, Fire Paper and a +8 weapon, this is what the fight looks like. A quick note about Beast Blood Pellets. As much as they boost your damage, they also boost the damage you take. So if you're new to the game, don't run in and start popping pellets right away. You'll have to get used to the boss and learn their moveset a little before this buff becomes useful. The Sword Spear is more than good enough without them, so don't try and be fancy straight away. Now it's time to think about Carol runes, another Bloodborne equivalent to rings and talismans. Head back to the place where you found the Canehurst summons and explore it until you meet an NPC. The Sword Spear is really good for NPCs, as an R1, L1, L1 will stun lock most of them. The Carol rune we get from this fight restores a bullet on a successful riposte, so it's great for parry builds. A very important note is if you want to have access to all of the game's endings, then you have to wait until Rom is dead before you do this. Now back to the Forbidden Woods. Head through the area until you get to this building and see the snaky guy walking towards you outside of it. Head right here for a shortcut. Now into Snake Zone. We are 1 blood shard short of a +9 weapon, and you can find that chunk by going right near the first big snake ball. Head further into the area until you see the big piggy. Then turn right for another shortcut and a health boosting rune that's good for now. Back to the dream to equip it and +9 your weapon. To access the shortcut you just unlocked, run down the path until you see the big snake ball, then run right, then immediately left. Time for one of the toughest fights in the base game. Shadows of Yarnham, on the face of it, is just another gank fight, but it's a little more complicated than that. The guy with just a sword is super aggressive. The guy with the sword and the candlestick is less aggressive but far more dangerous with his fire breath. And the mage will constantly spam magic at you throughout the fight. There's a ton of different strats for shadows depending on your weapon and your build. But here's the one that I will use for pretty much every run. At the start, focus only on parrying the sword shadow. The window is quite forgiving. Generally, if he's in an attack animation, you'll likely get the parry. While you're watching this, let's talk about the saw spear and why I chose it. The saw spear and saw cleaver are both quality weapons, with the cleaver favouring strength scaling, while the spear scales with skill. In Bloodborne, your riposte damage scales specifically with the skill stat. So it's all of our points in skill that are giving us such meaty ripostes here. When the first guy is dead, unlock your camera so you can watch both of them and go for the mage. When he's dead, hit the candlestick guy with an R1. He'll dodge to the side, hit him with another. This will get him stuck in a loop until he's dead. This strat is pretty overkill for a +9. We do enough damage to steam in there and whack all of them for a quick fight. But it's a nice parry strat that works on the vast majority of runs. Now into Bergenworth. When you head up the stairs, run past the hunter and up the ladder to grab the key. Whether you kill the hunter here is up to you. She's pretty tough, but easy enough with R1, L1, L1s. Time for Rom, and as you might have guessed, this isn't one of my favourite fights. But we don't have to worry about it too much on this build. When about half the spiders are dead, pop a beast blood pellet and kill the remaining ones with transforming attacks to get your beast meter maxed out. Apply bolt paper, then get stuck in on Rom. After a few attacks, he'll try to teleport away, which you can interrupt with a chargy, letting you get in some extra damage before phase 2. If you wanted to go full belt and braces for this fight, you could alternatively use the no-hit run strategy of building up your beast meter by hitting Rom in the face with your fists, after killing the spiders. Either way, you're not going to have to deal with much of this fight. With Rom dead, you can head back to the central Yarnham lamp for the claw mark rune. It's easy to find. Now for your Hargle. Explore the area until you find this room with 2 hunters in it. The one in the centre drops a rune that we want, so sneak up on him for a chargy and a riposte, then hit him with transform attacks. You might not survive this, but as long as he's dead, we can grab the rune on the next run through the building. When you get to the street with the ranged monsters, do what Rickon should have done, then keep right to find this doorway. In this building, there's a gun guy and a beast. Take out both of them for a really nice gem. Heading up the stairs of this building and through a teleporter will allow you to open a very helpful shortcut to the boss of the area. The one reborn is never really much to worry about, but with this build he's going to get absolutely wrecked. Head up to the balcony and kill all of the bell ladies. An R1 L1 will do it, but be careful not to knock them off the ledge. As you head down, buff with bolt paper and pop a pellet right next to him. Hit one of the front legs with transform attacks until it breaks, then go for the other. Then you can wail on the body. Running round to the back limb will end the fight. Just watch out for the falling corpses. Now for the Nightmare of Mensis. We don't need to pick up anything, so I'll leave it to you to explore the area. The fashion I have on is a solid pick for frenzy resistance. Mikalash is my favourite boss in Enir Ilum, but if you stick to some rules, he won't give you much trouble. In Phase 1, he only has one attack, the Noodle Hand. If you walk or dodge to the right whenever you see it, it will never hit you. As you move into the second phase of the fight, Mikalash will end up at the bottom of this room. For builds with good range damage, you can stand here and kill him safely if you like. With certain weapons you can also roll off this ledge to prevent him from running into the final room. On a casual run though, find the spot to jump down to him. The strategy is to stay right next to him, as if you stay close to him, he'll never do this attack, which he did here immediately of course because I was filming this. You still need to dodge Noodle Hand, but for leveled builds, you're almost better just to tank the punches and trade with him. The big mistake you can make here is dodging away from the punches only to be one shot by a call beyond. The next area of Mensis is a playground for echo farming, blood gems and upgrade materials. On a standard run, this would be where we get to a +9. Kill the first pig you see, then grab the items nearby, as there's a good gem here. If you run past the shadows to the left, this is a good little farming spot, as the pigs will fight the shadows. Run through to unlock the shortcut, then back to the dream to equip your new shiny gem. Now to one of the most dangerous areas of the base game. Near the shortcut, go down this lift and jump out halfway down through the window. Pop a blue elixir here, as it's useful for running past the winter lanterns. If you want some good gems, this is the best base game farming spot. But even if you're not farming, this is where we can also pick up the best base game waning gem. At the end of this area, you'll find a lever you can pull to access a very secret rune. Saving that for another video, drop down the hole and head into this area, where you'll find some of the best guaranteed gems in the game for arcane and blood tinge builds. Drop down onto this ledge for a blood rock to finally max out our weapon. The boss of Mensis is Murgo's wet nurse, who is one of the easier main game bosses. For pretty much every attack, you can run to the right, get behind her, and punish. The only attack you need to dodge is a 1-2 swipe combo that she didn't even get a chance to do on this run. Without doubt, the hardest part of the fight is the nightmare phase, but you can actually cancel it by rolling twice as soon as you see the orb appear above her head. The timing is slightly different for dashing, so make sure you're locked off for this. With the base game done, time for the optional bosses. If you didn't do early Amygdala, now is the time, as she's the easiest optional boss. But we're heading back to Castle Cainhurst for my pick for the toughest boss in the base game. For Ligarius on a parry build, it's actually phase 1 that's the hard bit. I'd go for maximum aggression to get his health down to 80%. Both the slow summoning attack and the phase transition are perfect opportunities to go for charges and riposts. As soon as he gets into phase 2, keep your distance to bait the jump, and it's all over. Now I want to talk briefly about Bloodborne's final secret area, Upper Cathedral Ward. You can find the key to it in your Hargle, and the entrance is all the way back in Cathedral Ward. The Upper Cathedral is one of the best and most unique areas in any FromSoftware game, and its 2 bosses would give away an aspect of Bloodborne I've tried my best to avoid spoiling for any new players in this video. So go check it out for yourself. You'll find a badge there that enables you to buy beast blood pellets with insight, which can be very handy for the DLC. Now it's time for the Old Hunters. And I do have a bit of a confession. Being at 40 skill with base strength is not how you make a sword spear build. It's great for parrying, our riposte damage is big, but our standard attacks would have been doing so much more damage if we'd gone for strength and skill together. So the sword spear is going to be a bit underpowered. The research hall can be a bit of a nightmare if you're not used to it, so here's a full route to navigating it very easily, using 2 blue elixirs. The Living Failures is one of the coolest fights in the game from a visual perspective. There are 2 good strats for this build that work great depending on how fancy you want to be. The first and easiest is to build up your beast meter by killing the first and second failures. Then you can just stand here with a full beast meter, killing the failure that spawns before he can get up. The alternative is going for parries, letting our big ripostes absolutely shred the health bar. It's worth learning to parry these guys, as there's a super cool strat you can do here that's one of the most broken things in the game, but we'll save that for another run. Go back to Ludwig's arena and run through the way you came to get to the research hall. What you're seeing here is the secret bottom of the lift, where you can find Lawrence's skull. Head back to the start of the DLC and into the Grand Cathedral for the fight. Lawrence is relatively simple if you stick to 3 separate strats for the 3 phases. For phase 1, run to the right and stay behind him, attacking the left leg. I usually do this with the camera unlocked as it's a little easier, but I locked on so you can see what's happening. If you're in position, the only attack that can catch you is the triple swipe, so it's worth learning the timings for that one. In the second phase, circle him anti-clockwise to avoid the belly flop on the floor and punish the leg afterwards. And phase 3 is incredibly simple. As long as you don't stand right in front of his mouth as he's breathing fire, that is. Keep him at 2 o'clock and circle clockwise. And there's a rule of 3s. When he does 3 stomps, be prepared to dodge to 3 o'clock for the swipe. I think Lady Maria was the point where Bloodborne combat really clicked for me the first time round. On this hilariously good parry build, you can get a really clean fight if you treat her like Sister Frieda, keeping her at a distance and fishing for parries. But for God's sake, don't do that, because this is still one of the most exciting fights FromSoftware has ever made. Get stuck in and use parries and the rally system.
Blasphemous murders, blood-crazed fiends. Atonement for the wretches by the wrath of Mother Goss. Mercy for the poor Western child. Mercy. Oh, please.
This run was my first proper playthrough of Bloodborne since Elden Ring's release, and although I've covered most of the game on a surface level, I can't begin to tell you everything that I haven't mentioned. Bloodborne has, in my view, some of the best quest lines of any of the games. Some of the darkest, most elusive secrets. The build you've just watched destroying health bars looks powerful, but I could have been doing so much more damage by heading into the Chalice dungeons. Speaking of which, there's still tons more bosses to fight. And probably my hottest take about Bloodborne is some of the Chalice bosses, especially the deeper ones that would still be hours away from us at this point, are much more fun to fight than some of the main game bosses. As for the lore and the story of this game, opaque and typically FromSoftware as it is, I think it says a lot about a game when even 10 years later, you still can't bring yourself to spoil the ending. I really hope we get some news from Sony today. I hope the pinned comment is me absolutely freaking out about a new announcement. But regardless of if or when Sony decide to bring this game into the modern era visually, it doesn't change the fact that in every other way, this game has not aged a day. So happy 10 years, Bloodborne, and thanks for watching.